Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. Thank you for stopping by. I am grateful as ever. There was this extraordinary cloud formation early in the morning, and I couldn't work out whether it was some kind of freak rain cloud, and pretty enormous. We're in the countryside outside Nairobi, about 8 kilometers, and let me show you this photograph that Truth Slinger tweeted. Nairobi today became too hot to handle and decided to spontaneously combust. And he posted this photograph, which was pretty cool. It was pretty extraordinary. We certainly could not work out what it was early in the morning. Macro thoughts. Holger Scheipitz. Euro drops back below 113. It's now below 112.50. And that's an interesting development. It's telling us that people are now looking through the whole Greek story, and I think the euro could now drop away back below 110. And then Scheipitz again. There used to be an inverse relation between 10-year Greek yields and the euro. This seems to have broken. And he posted this image, which I'll post as well. And then Eric Hansader, of course, I call this algo-induced volatility. Some HFT shop calls it meat and potatoes. 14 seconds and 7 stocks. Home thoughts. Some beautiful aerial photographs are tweeted by FC Morgan. I'll put both of them up. 2 of them are of lakes. I'm not sure which ones, but I guess Lake Naivasha or Nakuru. Pretty beautiful photographs, and that took me to Alexander Pushkin. And he really is a very powerful writer, and particularly raging against old age and love. Goodness, but listen to this. The wondrous moment of our meeting. Still I remember you appear before me like a vision fleeting, a beauty's angel pure and clear. In hopeless ennui surrounding the worldly bustle to my ear, for long your tender voice kept sounding, for long in dreams came features dear. Time passed, unruly storms confounded old dreams, and I from year to year forgot how tender you had sounded, your heavenly features, once so dear. My backwoods days dragged slow and quiet, dull fence around, dark vault above, devoid of God and uninspired, devoid of tears, of fire, of love. Sleep from my soul began retreating, and here you once again appear, before me like a vision fleeting, a beauty's angel pure and clear. In ecstasy my heart is beating, old joys for it anew revive, inspired and God-filled, it is greeting the fire, and tears, and love alive. Alexander Pushkin. Napoleon, someone who literally changed the global geopolitical order, defined military genius as a man who could do the average thing when all those around him going crazy. And then, of course, I haven't put this up, Olafur Eliasson's son, properly titled The Weather Project, which was shown at Tate Modern's Turbine Hall as long ago as 2003. And it is still as arresting as it must have been for those folks who walked into it. Political reflections. I don't think we've ever seen so much power given to one person in Russia, says the head of the US Global Airstrike Command. The US commander in charge of most of America's nuclear missiles has warned that too much power is concentrated in the hands of Russian President Vladimir Putin, and drawn parallels between Russia's recent behavior and that of Nazi Germany. Lieutenant General Stephen Wilson, commander of US Global Airstrike Command, said, I don't think we've ever seen so much power put in one person in Russia, and some of the things happening there are troubling and concerning for everybody. He added, they've annexed a country changing international borders, raising rhetoric, unlike we've heard since the Cold War times. And so lots of people are trying to figure out what is the strategic intent of Russia. Some of the actions by Russia recently we haven't seen since the 30s, when whole countries were annexed and borders were changed by decree. The Russian president remains defiant. Last week in St. Petersburg, he said, "We've started defending our interests more and more resolutely and consistently. We calmly kept silent for a long time and proposed various elements of cooperation, but we were gradually pressed and pressed on, and were ultimately pressed against a line we could not cross." Conclusions. I think it's interesting that the US is comfortable, it seems, executing two pivots, one to Eurasia and one to Asia, simultaneously. And in the context of the pivot to Eurasia, Saudi Arabia breaking ranks was interesting, wasn't it? Japanese planes apparently circled over China-claimed region in the South China Sea. A Japanese military patrol plane circled over disputed parts of the South China Sea on Tuesday at the start of an exercise with the Philippine military that has irked China. According to Japanese and Philippine officials, the Japanese P-3C Orion surveillance plane with 3 Filipino guest crew members flew at 5,000 feet above the edge of Reed Bank, an energy-rich area that is claimed by both China and the Philippines. It was accompanied by a smaller Philippine patrol aircraft. I'll put up a photograph of the Spratly Islands in the South China Sea west of Palawan, the Philippines. I'll put up a photograph of a P-3C Orion. And just note that, we've got 2 theatres in play at the moment, and both of which seem to be on a hair trigger. And then an interesting piece in the National Interest, which is saying the Russian claim China needs to rule the South China Sea. Russia appears intent on selling China the most advanced fighter jet by the end of the year, a move that will greatly enhance Beijing's ability to project military power in the South China Sea. Speaking to reporters at the Paris Air Show this week, Yuri Sulyasar, chairman of the United Aircraft Corp, a Russian civilian and military jet manufacturer, said his company is aiming to link a deal with China to sell Beijing 24 Su-35 fighter jets. That will go down a treat in Washington. US military pays Syrian rebels up to $400 per month. This is the Pentagon. And really, they are a bunch of ne'er-do-wells, and I don't think the Pentagon should have got involved with them at all. But that's a different point altogether. I like this photograph, Greek emergency talks. A lot of optimism now, but it hasn't helped the euro. Holger again, European convergence trade continues on Greece hopes. Peripheral spreads shrink up to 5 basis points. 10-year Bund yields jump above 0.9%. That was a little while ago. I'm not sure where it is now. Right now, the euro is at 112.42. Fell more than a cent from Monday's high of 114.015, so it's now actually down 1.5 cents from that high. Currency markets, as I said, 112.42. Dollar index heading back towards the 95 level. Japanese yen, 123.63. The dollar gained 0.5% on Monday, so it's pushed on a bit. Swissy 0.9280. The pound is at 157.88. Aussie 0.7726. India rupee 63.635. South Korean won 11.0517. Brazilian real 309.02. Egyptian pound 763.47, but quite firm. A couple of articles on Reuters about that. And the South African rand 12.1498. Looks expensive, and on the trading range, and I think could soften up a bit from here. I'll put up a 3-month chart of the dollar index. I remain bullish, as I said. Yellen holds the starting pistol with the first rate hike, and I suspect she just wanted to give the Europeans a little bit of breathing room to get themselves organised, and that's why she was very dovish in that last press conference. Euro dollar back at 112.45, not looking too clever in my view. And then I like this, a picture illustration shows the euro currency logo reflected in a person's eye in central Bosnian town of Zenica, March the 13th, 2015. Commodity markets, gold 1183.37. I'll put up a 1-year chart. I'm not bullish about it. Crude oil $60 and about 10 cents last time I checked. And again, we've been in this range of 58 to 63 for a very long time. It's quite interesting. And there's clearly some kind of algorithm in play, and has been for a while. And then, of course, we've got that other news to consider, that Ali al-Naimi accompanied the Crown Prince to visit Putin, and it would be wonderful to have known what they said, or if they offered a deal on the price of oil. Auction wars, Christie's, Sotheby's, and the art of competition. There's a lovely article in Bloomberg, this May, after billionaires had outbid billionaires in New York's contemporary art auctions. Something became immediately clear. Christie's had just clobbered Sotheby's with a gavel. Over 4 days, Christie's sales totaled $1.7 billion, the biggest week ever. On one of those evenings, frantic bidding inside its Rockefeller Center sales room enabled the auction house to sell $706 million of art, spanning the 20th century in less than 2 hours. An anonymous bidder even plunked down $179.4 million for Pablo Picasso's Les Femmes d'Alger, smashing the record for the most expensive work ever sold at auction. "We're in fantasy land," proclaimed collector Michael Ovitz, the former president of the Walt Disney Company, as he left the room. In contrast, Sotheby's moved just $890 million of art in 2 weeks, a little more than half of Christie's tally, underscoring just how far it had fallen behind its nemesis. Together, Sotheby's and Christie's control 42% of the world's art auction market. Competition has become cutthroat. There's simply never been so much money at stake. Sales of art worldwide surged last year to an all-time high of 51 billion euros, according to the European Fine Art Foundation. Both auction houses also saw record sales, 7.9 billion for Christie's and 6.7 billion for Sotheby's. It doesn't help that it's a seller's market where collectors play the houses off each other to earn the best deal. In 2013, when newsprint magnate Peter Brandt decided to sell Jeff Koons' balloon dog Orange, he shot the 4-foot-high stainless steel sculpture to both, hoping the sale would fetch as much as $75 million. Christie's made the winning pitch, they say, by offering to forego most of its sales commission paid by the buyer. Expected bids from Qatar never materialized, and the piece went for $58.4 million. While that was the highest price ever for a living artist, people familiar say Christie's made no money after marketing and installation costs. Interesting, isn't it? Very interesting article. Super aggressive, super competitive business. And on that note, I'll put up an image of Alberto Giacometti's Chariot, which set a new world record for sculpture at Sotheby's, and another Giacometti sculptures, L'Homme qui Chavire. And I must say, I sort of kind of like his stuff. Emerging markets, Venezuela's lack of inventory and a shortage of dollars is making it harder this year to buy any mobile phone. Just 4.9 million will be sold in 2015. That's a 46% drop from the almost 9 million devices sold in 2012. Jamie at Reuters, meanwhile, away from Greece, Chinese stocks plunged 13% last week, the biggest weekly fall in 7 years. Coming to Africa, tensions remain high in Burundi ahead of the parliamentary elections, which is scheduled for June 29, and a presidential election, which is scheduled for July the 15th. Grenade attacks killed 4 people in Burundi. That's according to a report yesterday on Reuters. Jeune Afrique tweeted this photograph of Bujumbura, une nouvelle série d'attaques à la grenade fait 4 morts. I'll put that up, and that takes me back to that point I made. As we look around the world today, we can see a battle for the street, from the streets of Bujumbura to the streets of Baltimore. In his book Speed and Politics, Paul Virilio says the revolutionary contingent attains its ideal form not in the place of production, but in the street, where for a moment it stops being a cog in the technical machine and itself becomes a motor, a machine of attack, in other words, a producer of speed. I like this photograph from Le Congolais. The headline was Rwanda, tension autour de rumeur de rebelles burundais entraînés au Rwanda. So I think there's a rumor that the rebels in Burundi were trained in Rwanda. But that neatly segues into this story. A Rwandan military general arrested in London in connection with war crimes. One of Rwanda's top military figures has been arrested in London in relation to alleged war crimes against civilians. Karenzi Karake, Director General, that's very senior, of Rwanda's National Intelligence and Security Services, was prevented from leaving the country on Saturday morning by the Metropolitan Police Extradition Unit on behalf of authorities in Spain. Karenzi Karake, 54, Rwandan national, appeared before Westminster Magistrates Court on Saturday, 20th June, after being arrested on a European arrest warrant on behalf of the authorities in Spain, where he is wanted in connection with war crimes against civilians. Remanded in custody, will reappear in court on Thursday. Spanish court indicted Karake in 2008 for alleged retributory war crimes in the years after the 1994 Rwandan genocide. He is accused of ordering massacres while head of Rwanda's military intelligence between 1994 and 1997, and ordering the killing of 3 Spanish nationals working for the NGO Médicos del Mundo, the BBC reports, one of 40 current or former Rwandan military officials named on the indictment. General Karenzi, I'll put up a photo, pictured in Sudan in 2008. Louise Mushikiwabo, who's been on Mainspeak, is pretty forthright. Western solidarity in demeaning Africans is unacceptable. It is an outrage to arrest a Rwandan official based on pre-genocidaire lunacy, We are handling the matter with the UK government, Justice Minister Johnston Busingye. I suspect Tony Blair's the interlocutor in this matter, don't you? South African all shares up 4.86% so far this year. This photograph caught my attention. A sandy cemetery in Khayelitsha, Cape Town's largest township. It's on The Guardian. You'll have to read the story. It's pretty interesting. Dollar rand, as I said, 12.14, 12.15. I think that's got to soften up the rand. The Egyptian stock market is down 4.895% this year. Coming to Nigeria, Buhari says virtually empty treasury brings pressure. Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari, who took office last month, said his government is facing severe financial strain from a treasury that is virtually empty and billions of dollars in debts. The government is under so much pressure that it's unable to even regularly pay some state workers, Buhari told reporters on Monday in the capital Abuja. This is the bad management that we find ourselves in. Yet to name a cabinet, government has been using its international reserves, which fell to $29 billion as of June 18th, from $34.5 billion at the start of 2015, to help defend the currency, which has declined 7.8% against the dollar over the same period. The Nigerian all shares down 3.673%. I'm bullish about Buhari, I'm bullish about the change, but I think there's some very rocky moments before that sort of renaissance can sort of gain traction. Africally speaking, Douala, Cameroon submerged after heavy downpours. Our thoughts are with the victims. The most dangerous job in Africa, brilliant article in the Mail and Guardian, if you've got time, do read it. One of the most beautiful places on earth, one of the most tragic. It is that corner of Africa where Rwanda, Uganda and the DRC come together. Straddling it all is 7,800 square kilometers of Virunga National Park, Africa's oldest proclaimed park. This is probably the greatest protected area on Earth, containing as many as 40% of Africa's species, with more endemic species than any other African park. That's the park's director, Emmanuel de Marodi, who I met at lunch at the Belgian ambassadors. He was very interesting. Everything about de Marodi is understated. He plays down the fact that he has a doctorate on the illegal bushmeat trade in the Congo, that he's a Belgian prince, albeit born in Tunisia, raised in Kenya, and that he has one of the most dangerous jobs in Africa. In that article, and he's a fascinating fellow, There was this lovely photograph of Lake Edward. 80% of the fishermen are apparently illegal. Kenya has released, or is to release, £1 billion towards the revitalization of Mumias Sugar Company. Mumias Sugar naturally rallied steeply yesterday, 5.41%, and it's up again sharply on that news. Another photograph from Franco Capillari of Kenya that I'll put up. I'll also put up a photograph that Nairobi News tweeted. Massive losses as fire destroys part of Gikomba market. And that was that other photograph I showed you at the very beginning. Kenya shilling last at 98.65. We don't want to see it going above 99.20, which was the multi-year low hit earlier a few weeks ago. Nairobi all shares up 0.276% this year. NSE 20 is down 6.497% this year. UAP and Old Mutual are going to merge the two businesses ahead of a planned listing of the combined entity on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Yesterday, the all-share rallied 0.31%. The NSE 20 firmed 1.86 points. Sentiment has been mending, but very gradually post the budget. Shilling, of course, came under pressure. Agriculture, Williamson Tea rallied a further 1.27% yesterday to close at $3.99. And it's up 53.46% since announcing a full-year dividend of 40 shillings a share. Safaricom was strong yesterday, but I see it's reversing those gains. Nation Media rebounded 4.571% off a 2015 closing low. Uchumi firmed 1.15% after a torrid fall. I think there's a lot of value in there, actually. I think it's now, with Siano's departure, it's open for some corporate activity. KCB ticked 0.88% lower. It's a value proposition at this level of 56. And then, obviously, Mumias had a strong rally. EABL shaved off 0.317%, but that looks cheap to me. Once again, I'm grateful that you stopped by. I really am.